Heartbreaking Twist, J.B. Beasley and Tracie Hawlett's Tragic Journey. Part 2. Welcome to the gripping continuation of the J.B. Beasley and Tracie Hawlett case. In Part 1, we delved into the heart-wrenching mystery of how these young girls mysteriously disappeared, only to be tragically discovered lifeless in the trunk of J.B.'s vehicle.
It was summer 1999. These two Northview High School students headed to a party. J.B. Beasley and Tracie Hawlett got lost on the way. They went to this store seeking directions. Then Tracie called her mom and said they were headed home. They never made it.
We also explored the astonishing accounts provided by Johnny Barentine, whose statements continued to shift and evolve. But what would be his fate? And would investigators, after all these years, finally unravel the perplexing Beasley and Hawlett case? As we rejoin the story, Johnny Barentine had been appointed a defense attorney, Bill Komenos. This lawyer faced the daunting task of fighting the charges lodged against Barentine. One critical aspect under scrutiny was Barentine's treatment during his extended 4-hour questioning by the police. Barentine contended that he wasn't informed of his right to use the bathroom, nor was he made aware that he could leave at any time. His claims painted a picture of a coercive and suggestive interrogation, rather than a fair and impartial inquiry. Further revelations emerged during the hearing, shedding light on Barentine's educational background. He had only completed up to 7th grade and a part of the 8th grade. He had also attended special education classes. While his multiple stories remained unexplained, it became increasingly evident that Barentine grappled with intellectual disabilities. From September 1st to December 17th, Barentine was held in jail, his future uncertain. Eventually, he was released on bond after DNA analysis confirmed that his genetic profile did not match the semen found at the crime scene. In January, a grand jury chose not to indict him for the crime. However, investigators made it clear that should new evidence surface, Barentine could be subject to charges at a later date.
The home of Fort Rucker. Situated in the heart of Dale County, it's a typical charming southern town. Home to nearly 15,000 people, it's a nice place for both raising a family and spending retirement years. However, the town was not the sort of place to hit the headlines until the gruesome double homicide.
With their primary suspect now a free man, law enforcement embarked on the arduous task of identifying new suspects. Over the years, they pursued numerous leads and gathered DNA evidence from potential individuals of interest. One such lead led them to a man from Michigan who had been at a party near the site where the girl's car was found. Investigators considered him a highly plausible suspect, primarily due to his abrupt departure from the area shortly after the girls went missing. He raised suspicions by failing to account for 3 to 4 critical hours of that fateful night and making questionable statements to acquaintances regarding the event. However, his DNA did not match the samples collected at the scene, diverting authorities in their search for the true culprit. Another suspect came into focus then. The driver of a small white pickup truck captured on surveillance footage at the Big Little store, where J.B. and Tracie had last been seen. The store's closure meant that no payment had been made via credit or debit card, leaving the detectives without any electronic transaction trails to follow.
One other significant lead police were chasing during the initial phase of the investigation was the driver of a small white pickup truck. A video surveillance camera inside the Big Little store caught a grainy, poor-quality image of what appeared to be a small white pickup truck at the gas pumps at the same time J.B. and Tracie were at the payphone calling Tracie's mother.
Moreover, the fact that the driver remained inside the vehicle raised further red flags. To aid in their search, the police released images of the truck to the media, but perplexingly, no sightings or reports of the vehicle surfaced. It seemed as though the truck had vanished into thin air. Yet another lead brought them to the man from Mississippi around March 2000. A DNA sample was obtained from the man and compared to the DNA discovered on JB when her lifeless body was found. He was extradited from Jones County and has been arrested on a separate warrant for possession of drugs in Ozark. Another factor that aroused the suspicion of police was that he had been staying with relatives in nearby Ozark, but abruptly departed just 2 days after the girl's tragic discovery. Though the police subjected him to rigorous questioning, neither DNA evidence nor concrete facts could implicate him in the crime, ultimately clearing him of any involvement. 2 decades had passed, and the investigation had grown cold, leaving the families, friends, and investigators longing for a breakthrough. Their prayers were finally answered in March 2019, almost 20 years after the girl's disappearance, thanks to advancements in technology. In a pivotal moment, the police turned to a public genealogy database to compare DNA samples, rekindling hope for a lead. Luckily, for those involved, their diligence paid off. The DNA was a match, linking the case to 49-year-old Coley, a former military worker living in Alabama. He was a man of many roles, a truck driver, a preacher, and a devoted family man, apparently without any known prior criminal convictions.
But no, I mean, he doesn't have the backstory that you would expect. We don't see the kind of crimes that might be developing into this pattern, previous sexual assaults, even previous domestic violence incidents. There's none of it. Like, you just have to believe that this guy did that 24 years ago and just stop.
His age matched the profile of the person the authorities were looking for. McCraney would have been 25 years old at the time of the heinous incident. Astonishingly, McCraney had never been on the police's radar and was known primarily as a deeply religious individual at the time of his arrest.
Now investigators believe they have their big break. Sources say DNA links this man, Coley McCraney, to their murders.
McCraney now faced 2 capital murder charges and 1 capital murder and sexual assault charge in relation to Hawlett. The suspect, who had managed to evade the police's scrutiny for nearly 2 decades, would finally face his fate in April 2023. When he took the stand, McCraney offered a bizarre narrative. He claimed to have met JB a few weeks before her tragic death, stating that she had tracked him down at his mother's house. According to his account, on the night that both girls went missing, McCraney and JB had a brief, intimate encounter in his truck. He stated that Tracie waited in JB's car while this was going on. McCraney's family home was situated only half a mile from where the girls' lifeless bodies were discovered, another point that made McCraney's involvement more plausible. However, his statement was not well received, and the court viewed his statement as a desperate attempt to explain away the presence of his DNA on JB's body.
McCraney's wife says on the day of the murders, McCraney came home a little after 8 at night after on their land in the Johntown community. McCraney then returned home, showered, allegedly went back out to the community to hang out with his family for a little before 10 o'clock. Now, McCraney's wife says he then came home at 12:45 the next morning, past their normal time to be out, and asked for help starting up his car that had broken down at a gas station, the same gas station that the prosecution claims McCraney met Beasley and Hawlett at that night.
Following a 2-week trial, the suspect was found guilty. Although prosecutors had initially sought the death penalty, McCraney received a life sentence without the possibility of parole. After a 9-day trial, the verdict marked the end of a nearly 24-year search for the perpetrator.
The jury found that Coley McCraney approached them at that gas station where they had stopped to get directions back to 231, forced them to some other location, raped JB, forced the girls into the trunk of JB's car, and then shot them both in the head before leaving the car on the side of a road here in Ozark.
However, the story didn't conclude there, as McCraney continued to fight for his cause. In July 2023, McCraney's attorneys were pushing for a new trial based on allegations of juror misconduct. Their motion asserted that 2 jurors had been actively posting on their Facebook page and providing accounts of the trial online. Another juror was spotted scrolling on his smartwatch, which was another breach of the judge's rules.
A jury the defense feels was on social media during the trial, even though they were told not to be by the judge. Now the decision of a new trial falls to Judge William Fillmore.
We felt that several issues during the trial that should have been handled differently.
Additionally, they cited jurors inquiring about a potential Brady violation, which suggested the jurors were considering evidence outside of the case, an outright breach of the judge's instructions. This retrial request was eventually denied by the judge on July 28th. As the legal battle raged on, the quest for justice continued, leaving the case with many twists and turns yet to be unveiled. If you enjoyed this video, then please show your support for this channel by subscribing to the channel or leaving a comment with your thoughts on this video.